I'm feeling a bit low energy, a little unmotivated today, so this iced coffee is a must. For the Disney movie I'm going to be talking to you about today, it is going to be different than other Disney flashbacks because this is the first movie that I had never seen before and really didn't know anything about. So if you saw my last video of The Fox and the Hound, you'll know that I don't think I saw it, but I was familiar with the story just from hearing about it and probably seeing clips here and there over my childhood. But this one, I know I definitely did not see before this one time I watched for this video, and I knew absolutely nothing about the story, I just knew the title. And that is The Black Cauldron, which came out in 1985. Have you seen The Black Cauldron? Let me know down in the comments if it's one that you've watched or if it's new to you too. Right off the bat, I have to tell you that the names in this one are very complicated and hard to pronounce. So forgive me if I pronounce them incorrectly. I will also probably be referring to characters by not their specific names, but describing them in other ways, just so I don't have to keep saying the names over and over and make it a little bit easier for myself. Also, I think I've worn this shirt in videos before, but it just seemed appropriate today because it says I run on Disney, and this is a Disney video, and caffeine, hence the iced coffee, so I just wanted to be comfy and felt like it was fitting. But this was the first one in the series of movies that we've watched that does not have a long opening credits sequence, so that was kind of a nice surprise. We didn't have to sit through that long beginning opening. They just get right into the movie. The title comes up, but they get right into the movie and the story. We start with a little backstory. There was an evil king, and his demonic spirit was captured into a black cauldron from what I could understand. Then we jump to present time in the story, at least the present time for that story, not saying it's present time like for us. And we meet some of the characters. Taran, I think is how you'd say it, and Dalbin. And they talk about how a war is going on. Taran is a pig keeper. Henwen is the pig he is caring for. He wants to do more than be a pig keeper, and that section gave me Beauty and the Beast vibes when she wants more than her provincial life. But this movie came out before that, so I guess I would have to say that's similar to this. But they both want more for their lives than what they're currently doing. In Taran's case, he wants to be a famous warrior. Some time passes, and we learn that Henwen, the pig, has powers. Dalbin tells Taran. Dalbin tells Taran, I may say it differently each time. See, this is going to be an issue. Dalbin tells Taran, it's going to drive me crazy.
Taran.
One side tells me Taran, one says Taran. I don't know. We're just going to work with it. So, going back a bit, we learn that Henwen the pig has powers. Dalbin tells Taran that he must never tell anyone what he is about to show him. He puts a pool of water in front of Henwen and then says a little chant. And in the pool of water, Henwen shows them, she's kind of like having a vision and making it appear in the water, and shows them the Horned King, not to be confused with the Demonic King, because I was confused at first. I thought they were the same person. The Horned King is looking for the Black Cauldron because he wants to access the power that is trapped inside of it. If he gets a hold of the power, he will be unstoppable. So they don't really explain this next part very well, so I'm just gonna go with what I think they meant or were getting at, because now that Henwen has done this, the Horned King was able to see Henwen having this vision of the Black Cauldron, and the only way I can think is, magic worlds, and like she opened herself up to being vulnerable, so then the evil Horned King was able to see that she had this power. How he even knew to be looking, I don't know, but gotta just ignore those things sometimes. But basically, he now knows that this magical pig has this power to vision or have visions of things. So Dalbin tells Taran to take Henwen to the hidden cottage at the edge of the Forbidden Forest, and don't take her out until I come to get you. Taran asks why, and Dalbin replies that only he knew the secret of Henwen's power. But now that the Horned King knows about it, he would use it to find the Black Cauldron, or he would use Henwen and her power to find the Black Cauldron. Taran tells him he's not afraid of the Horned King, and Dalbin tells him that it is unwise and he needs to be careful. Next, we see the Horned King. He's very skeleton-like in his appearance. I'm not that familiar with He-Man or the He-Man characters, but first impression, it brought me back to Skeletor and reminded me of that villain. Then he reveals a skeleton army, all of whom are dead, but he's promising to bring them back once he has the power of the Black Cauldron. At this point, I was already finding this movie to be a bit creepy and scary, especially for a Disney movie and thinking about younger audiences. The Horned King says he wants to be a god among mortal men. On the way to the hidden cottage, Taran starts daydreaming about being a great warrior and loses track of Henwen. As he's looking for her, he comes upon a furry creature in the woods. After some back and forth with this furry creature, he hears Henwen squeal. She is being pursued by some evil flying creatures. I think they might have been dragons, but I am not positive. After a bit of a chase, one of the creatures gets a hold of Henwen and flies away. So right off the bat, Taran has failed his mission. He tries to go after Henwen, but cannot quite make it. After some researching and looking into it a bit more, the furry creature's name is Gurgi. He tells Taran that he shouldn't go into the castle, and he's there because he wants to be Taran's friend. There is more involved, but to keep things brief, we will leave it at that. He doesn't end up going with Taran because he is afraid. But Taran keeps going and manages to make his way into the castle. There are some pretty unsavory characters eating, drinking, and having a good time. Then, like a magician, the Horned King appears. They bring in Henwen into the main area where everybody is. A little goblin-like creature says to her, "Show the king where the Black Cauldron is." She refuses, and the goblin says, "Stubborn little thing, isn't she?" Then they try to force her and make her, and Taran, who's watching from above, yells, "No!" but then falls from the rafters. All the men descend on him, and he tries to fight them with a broom, even though they have swords. Not the best move. They then make him join Henwen, and when she sees him, she smiles because she's happy to see her keeper there. The Horned King asks Taran if he is the keeper of this erratic pig. He says he is, so the king tells him, "Then instruct her to tell me where the Black Cauldron is." Taran responds, "I can't, I promised." The king responds, "Very well, then the pig is of no use to me." And they start to take Henwen away. They are going to execute her. So Taran says, "Stop, I'll make her tell you." Then the goblin tells him to get on with it. Once Henwen has started to kind of have her vision of the cauldron, the Horned King gets up from his throne and says, "So it does exist. Where is it? Show me, because he's getting excited. His eyes light up red, and he looks like he's about to grab Taran or Henwen, but Taran jumps up, knocking the bowl of water into the Horned King's face, which momentarily burns him, which they don't explain, because maybe it's holy water, but why would it be holy water if it's water they got from the castle where this evil Horned King lives? Don't. But it momentarily puts him out because it burns him in the face. So Taran picks up Henwen and starts to run. He and Henwen's only way out is to jump into the moat and swim. He throws Henwen into the water and tells her to swim, but before he himself can get over, he is caught and thrown into the dungeon. While he is in the dungeon, a girl comes up from out of the floor. She's controlling a magic light that she calls a bauble. She says she is Princess Elanwi. She asks him if he is a lord or a warrior. Apparently those are the only two options of things you can be, or at least in her world. He responds, "Neither. I'm an assistant pig keeper." She responds, "What a pity. I was so hoping for someone who could help me escape." She asks him to go with her anyway. They are roaming around, trying to find a way out. Taran finds a coffin of what he imagines was a great warrior. It even had the soldier or warrior sword on the outside. Then they hear the goblin coming. He's with a big man who is pulling something to bring to the Horned King, and the goblin is saying, "He'll reward me for it." The princess says, "We better get going before they come back." She notices Taran carrying a sword. She asks him where he got it, and his response is, "Well, he's not going to use it." A side note that I wanted to share is that I can see why I never watched this one before, especially as a kid. Parts of this movie are creepy and had me feeling a little on edge, wondering what was going to happen. They stumble on another prisoner and try to help him, but nearly get caught themselves. They get separated, and Taran has to use the sword to fight off the Horned King's soldiers. Come to find out, it's a magic sword. The princess finds him, and he fights more guards. They manage to escape along with the other prisoner they met. He's a musician, and his name is Fluter, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Just to give you an idea, it's spelled F-F-L-E-W-D-D-U-R. The three of them run into Taran's furry friend Gurgi again, and he leads them to where he saw the pig's footsteps. But then the footsteps lead to a body of water, and they all end up getting sucked into that body of water. It does like a whirlpool effect, and they all get sucked in. They land under the water, but they're not in water, if that makes sense. So they get under the water, but it's dry. There's no water around them, but there's the water above them. Hopefully that makes sense. Then we see some fairy-like creatures who stumble upon them. Taran, the princess, and Fluter wake up. The fairies mention that the pig had showed up there as well, so the pig also got sucked into the water. Then Henwin and Taran are reunited. The fairy king asks if the burning and killing is still going on up there. Taran mentions the Horned King, and the fairy king asks, "Won't anyone ever stand up to him?" Taran says if the Horned King ever gets his hand on the Black Cauldron, he will kill us all. The fairies know where the Black Cauldron is. Taran thinks they should destroy it before the Horned King has a chance to get to it. The princess isn't so sure that's a good idea. One of the fairies will go with them to show them the way. The fairy king is going to make sure Henwin gets home okay. Morva, I believe is how it was said, is where the cauldron is located. They go in search and get to Morva, where they come upon a room full of black cauldrons. Then what appears to be 3 witches appear. They are upset because Taran and the gang let all their frogs go. Really, they were people that they had turned into frogs, but they let them all go. And they call them thieves. They threaten to turn them into frogs and eat them. After a bit of back and forth, the musician does get turned into a frog, but one of the sisters took a fancy to him and wanted to marry him, so she changed him back. This is within like 2 minutes that she had took a fancy to him and wanted to marry him. Taran tells them, "Enough," while pointing his sword at them. He then tells them that they are looking for the Black Cauldron. The witches say, kind of to themselves, "Nobody's asked about the Black Cauldron in over 2,000 years. We're not going to give it to them, are we?" Then, all of a sudden, things start floating around the room, and a bunch of cauldrons are flying through the air. But then the magic sword gets involved or gets caught up into the spell, something, and I think ends up chopping one of the cauldrons, And so the witches then see that the sword is magic. So now that they see the sword is magic, they want it for themselves. They know something that the rest of us don't. They said they won't be able to use the cauldron, as in Taran and friends won't be able to use the cauldron. So the witches figure they'll end up with both. If they trade the cauldron for the sword, they will get the sword and then later get the cauldron when it cannot be used. But Taran, not knowing this information, reluctantly offers up his sword, seeing no other option. The witches disappear, taking the sword, their house, and everything else nearby with them. Then the ground opens up and the black cauldron appears. The witches then appear in a cloud, laughing at Taran and friends. They say, "Don't they know the black cauldron is indestructible? It can't be destroyed, but the evil powers inside it can." Taran asks them, "How?" They say, "A living being must climb inside of it, of his own free will. But the catch is, they won't come out alive." So let me do it without the voice, so in case you need to understand it better. They tell them that a living being must climb inside the cauldron, and it must be of their own free will, and the catch is whoever does it won't come out alive. Basically, they're making them a sacrifice of themselves. Later, Taran's down on himself. He says, "Without my sword, I'm nothing." The princess says, "That's not true. You are someone. You must believe in yourself. I do." Isn't that nice of her? Taran's speaking about how all of them have been true friends to him, and the Horned King's men show up and capture them. They also bring the black cauldron back to the Horned King's castle with them. Gurgi, who had met up with them again, can't remember if I told you that, manages to get away. So Alwani, the princess, Fluter, the musician, and Taran are captured, but Gurgi got away. I think it may have been telling me that my camera was getting too hot, which I know I was recording for nearly half an hour, but I have before, and that seems like a bit of a design flaw. But anyways, I've changed out the battery, and let's hope I can get through this before it does it again. So, as I was saying, the Horn King puts the skeleton in to wake his skeleton army. When I first started watching this part, I got a little confused at first, but then it made sense to me that a mortal being must sacrifice their life to stop the dark magic or get rid of the dark magic, but the dark magic can be used by anyone who wants to use it, I guess. The Horn King uses it, wakes his skeleton army. Gurgi does end up showing up at the castle, while at the same time, the skeleton army goes out to destroy mankind. Gurgi finds Taran and says, "I'm sorry I'm always running away when things get hard." Taran's decided he has to sacrifice himself for the greater good. The princess tells him no, she doesn't want him to do it, but she's tied up so she can't stop him. So Gurgi stops him. Then things get sad. Gurgi says, "Taran has many friends. Gurgi has no friends." Then Gurgi sacrifices himself and goes into the black cauldron. Then the evil magic is being killed off, so you start to see the skeleton army all fall and die, and everything that's kind of evil and bad, well, anything in its path really, is being sucked into the black cauldron as it retrieves the dark magic. And eventually the Horned King is also sucked into it. Taran almost is, but he holds on for dear life. Then the cauldron goes underground. The castle is crumbling around them, and Taran, the princess, and the musician must run to escape. They find a boat, but there is a gate in their way. Taran jumps out to open it. A big swell of water comes rushing up and washes their boat away, because he was able to open the door. And it's just in time before the castle crumbles. A cauldron floats up out of the water, one of the just random cauldrons that they have laying around. And when Taran sees it, he's reminded of Gurgi. Then the witches appear in the sky. They want to take the black cauldron back since it is no use to Taran anymore. The musician thinks quickly and says, no. We bargain, we trade. Remember? Because that's something that the witches had said to them earlier. He asks what their offer is, and they offer the sword back to Taran, and they say it's for a warrior. He says, I'm no warrior. I'm just a pig boy. Then he thinks and says, I would trade the cauldron for Gurgi. The witches respond, that's not possible. The musician goads them on, and they work their magic and bring Gurgi back. He appears to be dead still, and it's super sad for a moment. But then we see he is okay, and everyone is happy once they realize it. Then we end the movie by seeing Henwin looking into a bowl of water. She's back with Dalbin, and she sees that everyone is okay and walking together. This is a very different movie for Disney, at least it felt like it to me. I don't think if I randomly saw it on some streaming service or flipping through a channel that I would know that it was a Disney movie. I didn't dislike it, but I don't think it will go down as a favorite either. It had some dark, sad parts. I think if you've never seen it, it's worth watching at least once. Do you love this movie? I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this Disney flashback. I really have a lot of fun making these for you, and slowly but surely we're creeping toward the Renaissance era, which I'm very excited about because they're some of my faves, because they're the ones I grew up with. But I don't want to jump the gun, we're not there yet. But we're getting closer because we're into the 80s. So hopefully we will be there sooner rather than later. But thank you so much for watching. Give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to head on over and subscribe. It's free, and then you will get to hang out with me some more. I hope you have a magical day. Bye!